is August 10th, 2019. This is Steak Stance with Jason. Today we will talk about the AFC East, but first, there's a couple headlines I want to talk about. Since I've been gone for a while, we had the one podcast right before the draft, and then I was trying to do some behind the scenes things, like get this onto iTunes or Spotify and things like that. I just ran into a lot of issues, so for now, I'm going to upload to YouTube and not do anything else other than that until I can figure out how to get it on other platforms. And I'm not going to do any graphics unless I think it's very important to what I'm talking about. This episode won't have any graphics on it. So yeah. Since I've been gone, Kawhi won the title with the Raptors. Who would have thought that was going to happen? Spurs thought they were sending him somewhere he would never want to play, and then he goes and wins the title. Then he goes to Clippers with Paul George. My Oklahoma City Thunder just traded away everything, even Russell Westbrook. So that'll be something interesting to watch in the future. And then you got Anthony Davis to the Lakers. Anthony Joshua also lost to Andy Ruiz in a massive upset, and Joshua got absolutely destroyed. Yesterday it was announced that second fight will be in Saudi Arabia. Who knows how much money the Saudis put up for that fight? I'd really like to find out, but I don't think we ever will. So those are just kind of the headlines. I think I'm going to do another podcast episode where I talk about everything but football as it goes to sports. There might be like a headline or something just to touch up on. But yeah, definitely going to investigate that. In about 16 days I start my last semester in college, but I think I can really do this while I'm in school still. And once I find another job here. But yeah, like always, this is unedited. This is a constant flow. You might hear me drink a little bit of coffee, shuffle some papers around. Just kind of depends. But we will definitely do our best here. Like I said, this is episode 2 of the Steak Stance podcast. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment of silence for those lost in Dayton and El Paso. So let's do that here for a moment. Alright, thanks for doing that with me and understanding that. Yeah, we're not going to get into politics on this. That's not what this is for. One day I might do like a blog or something for politics, but I'm not going to do it on here. So yeah, let's get into it. AFC East, that's the Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, the Buffalo Bills, and of course the New England Patriots. We're going to start with the Miami Dolphins here. Let me get my papers here. Miami Dolphins, let's see. They got a new coach in Brian Flores, who was the linebackers coach and called the defensive plays last year for the New England Patriots, including in their Super Bowl win. He did not leave early before the Super Bowl was over, and he definitely got a ring. Belichick coaching tree usually doesn't do very well, but we'll see. He's a defensive guy. I think Romeo Crennel was a head coach before that. He was also one of the defensive guys, but we'll see. Only time will tell here. The biggest part of the offseason for the Miami Dolphins was they traded Tannehill to the Titans for probably nothing. I don't know. I didn't look it up because it doesn't really matter. And they lost Adam Gase, who was their coach, obviously. And they signed Ryan Fitzpatrick, who will get you a couple wins a year, or at least make you a little bit competitive. But he's been on like 8 different teams. He's not really a starter. And they kind of shocked everybody, and they traded for Josh Rosen for a 20. Let's see here. A second round pick, I think it was this draft, and a 2020 fifth round pick to the Cardinals. So they didn't really give up a ton, but I still think they should have taken Haskins at 13. They took Christian Wilkins from Clemson, who was just a monster for 4 years. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Basically, the format on this is I'm going to talk about the key additions to the draft and signings, any notable losses that they lost in the personnel, my analysis on the team, how does it help in division and against the league, and then I'll predict the over-under based on the most recent Cosmopolitan in Vegas over-under number. This one's not quite as in order as the other ones, but we'll go through the notes here. They added Dwayne Allen, who was a really good locker room guy in New England. If he plays, he's all right. He's not the greatest player, but he knows the Patriot way, along with Brian Flores, and I'm sure that's why they brought him in. And he can play a little bit. Devontae Parker got a 2-year extension. We've been waiting for him to do anything in the NFL. My brother loves him, but nobody else really sees what the big deal is about him. Maybe he'll shock us. Who knows? They picked up the 5th-year option for Laramie Tunzel, the tackle. So that's a big deal to protect Rosen if he ever gets to play. And then in the draft, they added 2 guys that I thought were the other guys, a lot of what I read was they reached for all of them. So that might not be good. But the first one was Christian Wilkinson's round 1 pick 13. He was the heart of the Clemson defense. I believe he won 2 national championships in 4 years. He was in 3 or 4 of them. This guy's just a monster. He really is. A couple stats for you. In 4 years, he had 40.5 tackles for loss, 16 sacks, and he played with 2 other first-round picks this year. So those numbers are quite impressive, or they're saturated because he played with other really good guys. It's kind of hard to tell which is the correct answer, but the numbers don't lie. This guy was a monster on the field. I was a big fan of him when I was watching him in the playoffs the last couple of years. It's a good pick, but I still would have taken Haskins here, considering the future of the NFL is always quarterbacks. But that was also before they got Rosen. I kind of thought Rosen would go to the Redskins, but I guess I was wrong. So they got a quarterback and a really good interior lineman. The other guy they got was Myles Gaskin. Everything I read online is that not a lot of people like him, but I thought he was really good for University of Washington. And they have Kenyon Drake and Kalen Ballage in front of him. But I think he could really be a good third down back, at least. I'm not really sold on Drake, but Adam Gase didn't really use running backs or just didn't like Drake. Kind of hard to tell, but he also didn't have a quarterback. It's just complicated. But I think Myles Gaskin could actually be a pretty good piece in a team. Another notable person that they signed was undrafted free agent Preston Williams. He had a couple of really good catches in the first preseason game. I was shocked when somebody in my Dynasty League picked him up. Couldn't even believe it. I had him written on my my draft board piece of paper on the bottom because I didn't think anyone was ever going to pick him up. And then, of course, he does a bunch of nice catches in the preseason game. A little bit about him. He's a 5-star from Tennessee. He had several off-the-field issues. I don't know what they are. I didn't look them up, but I saw he had a lot of off-the-field issues. And last year at Colorado State, in 12 games, he had 96 catches, 1,345 yards, and 14 touchdowns. He could be really good if he can figure out the off-the-field issues. And with Fitzpatrick or even Rosen thrown to him, he could really put up a lot of big numbers if he can develop into that number 1 receiver role. Even if he doesn't really have that much competition in front of him, like Kenny Stills. Albert Wilson's a slot, so I don't really worry about him. I guess Devontae Parker, but Parker hasn't really done anything. So he could easily get some reps. I also signed Alan Hearns, just coming off that broken leg from the Cowboys. I think it was a 1-year deal. So that just kind of depends on his recovery. And then they just signed Robert Kimdichie the other day, who was overweight and got cut. So we'll see about that. It's not an addition, but Xavier Howard got a 5-year, $75.25 million contract this offseason. $27 million was guaranteed at signing and $39 million total. It's technically through 2025, but it's really just a 3-year contract. It's guaranteed because after that they can cut him, and they already paid all the guaranteed money. I was kind of watching some highlights of him a little bit ago. I didn't really know much about him. I'm sure most people don't unless you actually watch like the Patriots play him or something. But the notes that I wrote down, he seems like he's like glue on the defense. He runs stride for stride with anyone. Outstanding ball skills, and he's just a true shutdown corner and a ball hawk. There's a highlight with him against Amari Cooper, and AJ Green, and those are two really good route runners, and he was right there with them stride for stride, and they weren't catching the ball, that's for sure. So it's kind of a lot of money if you don't know who he is, but if you watch just a little bit of his highlights, it's money well spent. The last couple things on here, kind of talking about Christian Wilkins. He's just a leader and a pass rusher, interior. I bet he could play anywhere on the D-line. He was one of 3 Clemson defensive linemen picked in the first round at pick 13. The other 2 were Clellan Ferrell, number 4 to the Oakland Raiders, and Dexter Lawrence, 17 to the Giants. Let's see. In the division, they'll be kind of competitive because they play in Miami, so it'll be hot later in the year. And it sounds like people just don't like playing in the heat, which makes sense. They're going to be last in the division. I don't see any other way around it, really. The over-under is 5 wins, and I struggle to find 4 wins. It might be close in multiple games, but 4 wins is about the most I see. If I was betting at the Cosmopolitan, I'd be due under the 5 wins. They might be able to get lucky against the Pats week 2 at home because the Patriots are usually not very good in the first quarter of the season. Week 6 against the Redskins because they're just in shambles. Week 13, which is December 1st, they're home against the Eagles. The Eagles will probably have snow, and the Heat might get to them in the second half. So, I don't know. It's hard to find wins on that team. We'll see if Brian Flores and company can turn that around. The second team is the Buffalo Bills. I'm also doing this in order from the bottom of the division to the top. That's the other order I'm doing this in. So, the Dolphins, I believe, are going to be the worst team in the AFC East. Now, like I was saying, the Buffalo Bills are the second team. I like a lot of people that they added. I didn't get too deep into the losses. I kind of just went through the transaction page, and whoever I noticed was released, I put on there. And then people that I know retired. So, for example, they cut Charles Clay, tight end, and they lost Kyle Williams, who was the leader in the defense interior. But we'll do the draft first. Their first pick, number 9, was Ed Oliver. I think he was arguably the best player in the draft. He was the first 5-star University of Houston ever got committed. He was just a monster. And a lot of the people that study tape say he wasn't even used right, and he was still the best player on the field. So he instantly replaces Kyle Williams on the defensive line. I mean, might not be the leader right away, but he's going to be a stud. No other way around it. It's either him or Quinn Williams, I think, were the best players in the draft, and he dropped all the way to 9. I couldn't even believe it. They also added Cody Ford, a tackle from Oklahoma. Got to protect Josh Allen. Devin Singletary, Florida Atlantic running back. He's basically Alfred Morris. And if you remember Alfred Morris when he was on the Redskins, when he was a rookie, he had like, I want to say 1,600 yards as a rookie, which is incredible. And then the other notable person at the draft was Dawson Knox, who was part of the Ole Miss receiving corps, who's a tight end, but he's basically a receiver. He didn't put up very many numbers, but from everything I see, he has all the intangibles to become a very, very good tight end in the league. They added Cole Beasley and John Brown, 2 veteran receivers, a little bit smaller guys. So Josh Allen's really going to have to hone in on his accuracy for these guys. These guys are very good route runners, and especially John Brown can be a deep threat like he was last year for the Ravens. He's a very good receiver. Cole Beasley, great security blanket. And they also added a couple linemen. Not really big names, but rotation guys that maybe one of them can start and protect Josh Allen. They also added Kurt Coleman to the secondary. And just a little caveat piece here. Christian Wade had a touchdown preseason. He looked super fast. He's an international rugby player. So that's just something to note. One other guy that I saw they added was Voshon Joseph. I actually saw this guy about a month or 2 ago on like the top 25 games of last year for college football. And he was a linebacker at Florida. And he was just all over the field. He was basically a safety at linebacker. He's a little bit smaller guy, but he can really run around the field. As far as the Buffalo Bills, my analysis, bottom line, it's a physical team under Sean McDermott, former Carolina Panthers defense coordinator, and they just get more physical in the trenches. Josh Allen seems more of like a physical guy. He runs around a little bit, strong arm. It's just a physical team. Beasley and Brown give Allen some real receivers to work with. His receiving core since he's been in the league has been terrible. I mean, like Calvin Benjamin on his team, like you're not gonna really get any better with these kind of guys on your team. But these 2 vets really help him, I think. The draft class, the 5 rookies that I mentioned, Ed Oliver, Cody Ford, Singletary, Dawson Knox, and Voshon Joseph, I think those are really solid picks. It's actually surprising to see a Buffalo Bills team add some quality players if you know anything about them in the past. Versus the division, Ed Oliver, he's just a monster. He's a stud. He's gonna be an interior pass rush. He could be a defensive end if you really wanted him to, but I think he's more of a interior pass rush, run stopper kind of guy. And they're just kind of building long term with Josh Allen, which is good because once Tom Brady leaves, that division is wide open, and we don't really know what's going to happen. And if Josh Allen is healthy, nobody's going to want to play this team. They're so physical. Nobody wants to play in Buffalo. They have some crazy fans. If you don't believe me, just watch some videos about their tailgates. The over-under opened at 6 at the Cosmopolitan. It's currently 7. I think that's too high. I think they'll compete in a lot of games just through their physicality and have some low-scoring games that are winnable. But I would bet the under on the 7 wins. That's just too many wins for a team that you just don't know where the points are going to come from. But they could be a surprise team. But the division's pretty tough with the Jets and the Patriots. And the Dolphins could steal a game too. So I would do under the 7 wins. The next team is the New York Jets. This team is very, very interesting now on paper. The biggest loss I saw was Darren Lee, inside linebacker, went to the Chiefs. But they got C.J. Mosley from the Ravens in the off-season free agency, who is miles better. I think I was just watching. I don't remember who said it, so I can't give him credit. But they were talking to the scouts about C.J. Mosley, and apparently he's super intelligent, and the Ravens ran a really very complicated scheme, and he was putting people in alignment and just all over the field. I would say it's the best signing this offseason, but they actually made a better signing, which I'll talk about here in a second. But yeah, C.J. Mosley in the defense was a huge free agent signing. They also added Quinnen Williams, Alabama, D-tackle, at number 3. And either here at Oliver were the best player in the draft, and he dropped all the way to 3 right in their lap. It's actually incredible that they got him, and they didn't think too hard about it. They also added Ja'Kai Polite. I guess I could say that, from Florida. He had 11 sacks last year. And there's some other stat. It was something about sacks and deflections, or something, pass deflections and forced fumbles. And the only other person to have the same number of sacks and deflections and things like that was Josh Allen, who went to the Jaguars at pick 7. So this guy could actually be an under-the-radar steal for this team. Then you pair him with Quinnen Williams, Leonard Williams, and that D-line, the front 7 really in general is scary. Because then you add Avery Williamson and C.J. Mosley to that, and then Jamal Adams and Trumaine Johnson in the secondary. It's a pretty good defense. Jamal Adams was saying that there's no dogs on the team. There's some dogs now. Let's talk about the offense here real quick. They traded for Kalichi Osemele from the Raiders, formerly the Raiders. Then he was on the Ravens when he got drafted. They went to the Raiders. They got him for a 5th-round pick, and he'll start immediately as long as he is healthy. Then they added Jamison Crowder, great slot receiver from the Redskins. So the receiving core is a little bit better after that. Ryan Khalil retired last year from Carolina Panthers, and then he came out of retirement to play with Sam Darnold, which is just crazy. And then, of course, they signed Le'Veon Bell. And I'm a huge fan of Le'Veon Bell. And the Steelers are going to regret it. Because I think he's going to put up the best year of his career. Everyone keeps saying that he's not that good. James Conner's just as good, blah, blah, blah. We're behind this awesome offensive line. Well, the Jets are putting together a pretty good offensive line. And Le'Veon Bell can line up anywhere on the offense, and he can be effective. And I just can't wait for him to run all over the field. They added Adam Gase, who finally gets a quarterback worth a damn. He was in Chicago for a minute and made that offense really good for a minute. And then he went to Miami. He had Tannehill, who was a receiver in college, except for like the last 2 years. And when he was healthy, he had a winning record. So having Sam Darnold might really, really help. It's going to be very interesting to watch, especially this year. And even a couple of years, because a lot of these guys are under multi-year contracts. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I think they have a real chance to win the division. Will they? Probably not, but they do have a chance. Like, way more than they usually do. They have a loaded front 7, like I already mentioned. And they added the best running back in the league, who can catch out of the backfield and do everything. It's going to be interesting. Another year for Sam Darnold to get used to the NFL. They could use a couple more, they could use somebody in the receiving core to step up, or another receiver. And outside of Trumaine Johnson, they don't have any corners, so that could be an area of concern. I think they're going to win the division or get the one of the AFC wildcard spots. But that might be tough, especially with the Chiefs and Chargers. But I think they can do it. Their over-under opened at 7. It's currently at 7.5 at the Cosmopolitan. And I would bet over, if I was betting right now. I think they could get at least 8 wins, and then they could steal a few on top of that. This is a team that's going to be very interesting this year, especially with all these additions. But there's one warning. The Philadelphia Eagles signed the Dream Team one year, and they were horrendous. So it's just going to kind of depend. But I really think this team won't be a fluke. And I'm going at least 8 wins on that team. And then, of course, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Does it really matter who they lost? Probably not. But the 3 guys that I noticed that kind of matter: Dwayne Allen, Trey Flowers, and Rob Gronkowski. Trey Flowers signed a massive deal with the Lions. Another pass rusher that Bill let walk away. Rob Gronkowski made some huge plays in the playoffs, but before that he was basically just a run blocker the whole year. I won't be shocked if he comes back in like Thanksgiving just to do a little playoff run, but I also won't be surprised if he doesn't come back at all. Especially when he's hanging out with Camille. I probably wouldn't play either. Just go hang out with her. If you don't know who that is, look it up. Ads. We won't go to the draft yet. We'll just do a couple free agent ads that it work/trades, I guess. First one's Michael Bennett. He really blew up on the Seattle Seahawks. Last couple of years he's on the Eagles, and now he's in New England, which is just ridiculous. They get rid of Trey Flowers and then bring Michael Bennett in for a fraction of the cost. It's incredible. The names I wrote on here that they added to their team is just incredible. 2 guys I'll give honorary mentions to are Maurice Harris and Jacoby Myers from NC State. Both these guys are doing really good in training camp. Jacoby Myers actually just had 2 touchdowns in his first preseason game. I accidentally came across him when I was looking up N'Keal Harry and noticed that this guy was actually balling out. He's a receiver from NC State. He had over 1,000 yards receiving last year. I think Kelvin Harmon was like the bigger name there, but this guy's just as good. The only thing I didn't like when I was watching some highlights of him was that he makes a lot of body catches, which doesn't translate to the NFL very well. So it'll be interesting to see how that transition works. And if you know anything about the Patriots, they always have a bunch of receivers, and I don't know if the offense is too complicated or what the deal is, but they go through receivers like water. They also signed Demaryius Thomas, who is coming off an injury. I want to say it's an Achilles injury. I didn't look this up, but he was on the Texans last year and got cut after he got hurt. And they brought back my guy Jamie Collins from Southern Mississippi, the former safety. And they just signed Cam Meredith, another receiver. So there's a lot of competition at the receiver position, especially considering Gronk's gone. They have to find a weapon for Brady to throw to when the time comes. The draft. The first 3 rounds of the draft for this team, you shake your head at how good it is. Just shake your head. Like I was talking to one of my friends about it a couple months ago, and we're just so impressed by how they make the right pick at the right time and get all these studs. It's just crazy. The first guy they got was N'Keal Harry, Arizona State receiver. He's about 6'4", back-to-back years with 1,000 yards and over, I want to say 70 catches each year. Big guy, produced, and hopefully Tom Brady likes him because I have him fantasy. Next guy they got was Joe Juwan Williams from Vanderbilt, cornerback. He's a 6'4" corner. Only heard good things about him. He's obviously smart because he went to Vanderbilt. You can't just get in there. They don't let you get in there for free like Alabama does. You gotta actually go to your classes. Very big corner. Bill really likes the big corners like Gilmore, Talib. Revis was kind of smaller, but it's a really good pickup considering you have to stop these bigger star receivers. So it could be a very underrated addition to the New England Patriots. Let's see. They got Chase Winovich from Michigan. A lot of scouts are saying that he might actually be better than the guy that got drafted ahead of him, his teammate Rashawn Gary, who was a #1 recruit a couple years ago that went to Michigan, obviously. A couple different analysts say that he was actually a better pass rusher. So this is huge for the Patriots because they haven't really had consistent pass rush. Rob Ninkovich, one of my favorite Patriots that I've ever watched play, was really good at setting the edge and getting into the backfield. He's like one of the most underrated Patriots, and he's been missed for a couple of years, and I think they finally filled that void right here. They got Damian Harris, who running back from Alabama, because Sonny Michel has a knee issue. So Bill being Bill, got an instant replacement if Sonny can't play. Plug Harrison, not missing a beat. And then the most interesting pick was Jarrett Stidham from Auburn, formerly quarterback on Baylor. And he played pretty good in the preseason game a couple days ago. And I guess he's really learning the offense quickly. So we'll see how that transpires there. He could be the starting quarterback next year because we know Brian Hoyer's not going to be. And if Brady retires, they're going to have somebody, and this could be the guy. My brother really likes him because he's Auburn. I don't know why he likes Auburn, but he does. And then to add to this, 2 consolation prizes. They get 2 guys off of IR that they drafted last year. Isaiah Wynn, a tackle from Georgia, who they drafted in the first round. Didn't play down, so that's another offensive lineman that might even start right away. And then also cornerback Duke Dawson from Florida, who they drafted in the second round, was out all year. So they get 2 guys they drafted last year. So it's like 2 additional picks that have been in the NFL, learning the system, etc., etc. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. Analysis, what do you really say about the Patriots? You got Tom Brady, you got Bill Belichick. What's there to say? Like, if they don't win the Super Bowl, that's a disappointment. If they do the Super Bowl, it's not really a big surprise. The division, they have it on lockdown, as long as Brady's upright. Got some more pieces to throw to, some more people to run. I don't know. There's not really much to say about it. 6 rings. Won't be surprised if we get 7 this year. The Cosmopolitan over-under is 11 wins. All the games are winnable. Obviously, it's the Patriots. Week 8, they play the Browns, who have Kareem Hunt, but he won't be back until at least week 9, but I think they have a bye, so they don't have to worry about him, who is like the kryptonite of the Patriots the last couple of years. His numbers against the Patriots are incredible. The only game to really talk about is Week 14 against the Chiefs. I could see this going 2 different ways. Number 1, I could see Bill and Josh McDaniels being very conservative in this game, depending on the record of the Chiefs or what the home field advantage is looking like. If they're conservative, they might not show very much if they'll have to play them in the playoffs no matter what. So they might just throw this game away so that they can save their strategy for the playoffs, because that's what they do. If they have a chance of eliminating the Chiefs from the playoffs, I feel like they're going to go for the kill. The Chiefs are like the only team in the AFC that can really challenge the Patriots, so if they can knock them off in the regular season, they're going to do it. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup to watch, depending on the record of both teams, because that's the real threat to the champs, is the Chiefs. And they don't really have a defense, so they might just torch them both times. But it's very hard to beat a team twice in a year. So that's why I think they might just kind of go conservative and let the Chiefs have the first one so that they can slaughter them in the second one. So yeah, that is the AFC East. Just to recap, I have the Patriots winning it, the Jets second due to the addition of Le'Veon Bell and C.J. Mosley primarily. The Buffalo Bills will be a physical team. They'll probably be in a lot of close games, especially towards the end of the year when it snows and there's a blizzard. I'm excited to see Josh Allen grow more. He has some real receivers now, and I think Devin Singletary could have 1,000 yards on the ground, when he gets started. And the Dolphins, they might tank. They might challenge teams. It's hard to say what they want to do. I hope to see Rosen by the mid-year starting so that they can see if they need to draft a quarterback. Because they do have some weapons on offense that they could use a little bit. But yeah. Won't be surprised if the Patriots are back in the Super Bowl. And I won't be surprised if the Jets are in the playoffs here in year one with Adam Gase and Sam Darnold. I'm going to continue this series with every division. I'm not sure which one I'm going to do next. I might just do all of the AFC and then convert to the NFC. There is one podcast I want to do about the NBA and maybe boxing, maybe do like a half and half or split those into their own podcast. I'm not sure yet. We're also going to try to get this onto iTunes so it's a little bit easier to listen to than YouTube. But yeah, thanks for listening. Stay tuned for updates and another release of another podcast. I'm really going to get on this. It's not that hard. It just takes a little bit of time, a couple hours. Oh, and I might do a fantasy football related one once the NFL season starts. And I might do a pick 5 spread for every Wednesday before the Thursday night games and the weekend starts, just to see how I would do picking the spreads every week and keep track of that. Yeah, thank you for listening to the Steak Stands podcast. This is episode number 2 about the AFC East.